Hello, this is for the game design class. This is March 28th. Um, Sorry for not posting some updated videos this semester till now. I actually just finished my PhD dissertation on Tuesday, I think it was. In any case, we are wrapping up Sprint 2. So you just finishing this week here, and you're moving into this week where I'm going to put the one video up here. It's not meant to give you additional work. I'm just going to be explaining some things, and as we move into Sprint 3. So just to recap, for Sprint 2 endpoint, this coming Sunday on the 4th, and then I'll give every student 3 students to give feedback on. We do that Wednesday. This concludes the design phase. So we go through that research phase and the design phase, and then we just go heavy into prototyping. So for Sprint 3, it'll just be like completely work within Unity, get your prototype up to its highest level of quality as you can. Based on all the feedback you've gotten from students, hopefully you had some interesting ideas reviewed with some interactions or some systems that you want to try and build out. Now, since this is like the first design class, and we can't expect people with a lot of C# for Unity coding experience coming in the class, that's why we're talking a lot about the process that you go through as you try to make a software product or service for somebody else, for your client, for your audience, for your user. But always thinking about the other person as you're designing it. So it doesn't matter if it's a game, if it's an educational software, if it's productivity, communication, collaboration. It doesn't matter what the software is. You're always having to think about who you're making it for. That's why you go through these research problems, these design solutions, and you ultimately start developing these design documents. Now, the larger design document is for like the whole team, just to get everybody understanding on board with what we're going to make. And then usually it's accompanied with a technical design document that's more for the programmer side. But all this comes together in team efforts. I know you have your passion projects to work on the games that you want to, but the better off that you are when you realize that you're making stuff for other people and you're working in a team and you're focusing on a small set of specialties and relying on other people, the better off you be when you leave school. Now, toward the end of this video, I'm just going to cover some quick little programming ideas to help you express your prototype ideas better for Sprint 2. And then ultimately for Sprint 3, I'll be going into more in depth. I think I'll be focusing how to control animators with your code, because you can express a lot of ideas really fast with some light coding, and then relying more on animator systems to make more dynamic prototypes to explain your ideas. So hopefully you check that email I sent out about a week ago. So this whole revamp of all of our game design classes, actually DJ did meet with Frank. Frank is the chair. He was very excited and interested. All of our research faculty that we work with is really interested in these redefinition, or basically we're trying to get the undergraduate students functioning so they can work on real projects, whether it's funding from grants and you're working on research projects for our faculty, or if you are, want to work on a personal project or join a small team to work like a larger game for your senior year. Ultimately, all this comes together in this idea of a production lab. Basically, we pull in all the specialties of our faculty to act as kind of managers, supervisors, while the students make as realistic, as full-fledged, interactive or gaming projects as they can. for your portfolio for when you're leaving school. It seems like we got the green light from Frank, but if you're still thinking about doing some type of petition, that'd still be really helpful. Contact DJ. And the second part of the production lab is we're also developing a master's program. We're developing a few more courses at the undergraduate level to kind of tie everything together. And then we need to start fusing better with the DD program to get more artists and designers, to get more full functioning media teams, gaming teams, interactive teams, what have you. What that means for our classes is that IT 201 will be like the intro to Unity and interaction design. This class, the game design class, will be I'll probably remove out the research phase or just touch on it for like a week and then move heavy into design and then give like 2 sprints in prototyping. So we'll probably have to focus more on building larger systems and game mechanics and being a little bit more programming heavy than it's currently being, but not much. It still has to be scoped up. You'll still be following along with the projects and making your own. But think of it like just one more sprint that's more into coding beyond what's currently at. That'll probably be this design class. And then the production class, game production, was at IT 287 or 286 into 287. Or this, I think it's 287. So anyway, the game production class will be revamped starting next year. And it's just going to be building systems in Unity. So do you need rendering systems? Do you need to build simulations like worlds? Do you need to build gaming systems that have mechanics? Like maybe inventory systems, world map viewing, navigation, fighting, and what have you. And then this ties into 380, the educational software design, which kind of brings you into the labs projects, the research projects that we have doing. And then, 3D modeling. So 386. So currently, it's interesting. We've always done it with some type of content package, either Maya, Blender, or Houdini. And it's really hit or miss with a lot of students. So I think what I'll focus on more is procedural modeling in Unity. Just stay in Unity, stay with C#. Let's use ProBuilder in Unity just to understand the basics of modeling. But I think we're going to have to rely more on DD to be like our content creators, our Maya, Blender, and people, Max. There are a few through IT that actually have really exceptional skills in either Blender or Maya, and we'll make use of them as they come through, but they're not a high a percentage. So I have to focus on a majority of the students, and they're going to, I think if I just double up on C# in like all the classes and get programming heavy, it would be better. So I think we'll do more of like a procedural modeling, maybe move, and then like half in like shaders and procedural animation or something. Anyway, that was that whole revamp, that email I talked of, and where we're going in the production lab and developing this masters and everything. So that's what all these events have been happening for this semester. And come the fall, we're going to be live back in the Mixer Lab, live on campus. Please get your vaccines over the summer. And let's just start the semester next year, regular live in person, and be safe about it. So to wrap up, I don't need to talk about Sprint 3. It's going to be heavy prototyping for us this semester. What I did want to talk about was to wrap up Sprint 2. Now, if you're working on your own project, that's great. Definitely experiment, try your own ideas. If you get stuck, there's always a lot of rabbit holes that we can hit into with production or programming. Feel free to fall back into my project. So it's okay if like Sprint 1 was about your project and Sprint 2 was some of your project and then moving into mine, what have you. And then for Sprint 3, you would have to stay with me. So just try to stay on your own as long as you can, and if you need to fall back, you can fall back. It's okay. So the first thing I'll talk about is the way I built the intro scene here, like this UI just moving from piece to piece with this canvas UI function. This thing here, the core of it being set intro sequence, this switch statement. So this intro sequence is just a number, an integer. I should probably switch it over to enumeration in the next class, but that's okay. Enumerations are like a series of integers, but have nice little string names that are easy to read for people. Like this here, horizontal alignment options dot left. So if you see here, it actually equals just a number, but for people to read it, developers, we're talking about the left alignment. So that's the benefits of enumeration. But this central switch statement that we go into and we move between all the main parts of the intro sequence is very useful. So it's always like moving from one state to another. It's like a little state machine, and you get to think of all the states, all the changes that you wish to make in your experience, your prototype, your level 1, your tutorial, whatever. And at least you can build out the major strokes of it. Yes, things might not be dynamic, they might not be moving, they're not interactable except for maybe these buttons moving back and forth, but it gets the point across. That's why I built the introduction like this. And this is using UI elements, and we're just switching out text, we're adding buttons, turning them on and off, the set active, true and false. That works for all game objects. Notice here if I hover over set active, there's a function or method coming from the game object class. So you can turn stuff on and off, whether it's a 3D model or whether it's a 2D element in the UI. And that's really useful before you even start thinking about like animation and physics and light AI, if things moving around, and forget it. Just turn stuff on and off, and that at least makes it like the other people can understand the breadth of the whole experience. So you can show if it's a platformer, you can just like turn the character in the platforms on and off as the player clicks like the right arrow to move through it, or keeps clicking the next button to show like, look, the player starts here, there's a series of jumps where they learn how to jump, and then there's the first enemy where they're going to learn how to fight. At least you're talking about the broad strokes of this interactive or gaming experience that you wish to do. And that's where I want to just focus for wrapping up Sprint 2. So look at how I built the intro. You can have a similar script called like tutorial manager or level 1 manager, right? And then just move through the sequence. Tutorials are going to be just like this because you can't have it be all fluid. You need to like make sure the user understands one concept, move to the next. Understand this, move to the next. Whether it's a game or a learning experience, you need to make sure they understand small points of information. How to use your controller. What are the mappings on the keyboard? What's the point of the game? How do you score? How do you power up? All this needs to be taught one at a time, and then you kind of let them loose into the game world. You let them do that level 1. So tutorials definitely going to follow this big switch statement of just turning stuff on and off. All right, so you can just have like a whole bunch of game objects, have a nice hierarchy, organized. You can just turn stuff on and off. And you'll be able to express your own ideas on Sprint 2 just a lot more. You'll get a lot further. You'll get a bigger bang for your buck if you just try to explain the larger points, the bigger experience. How does the player play level 1 to complete it? Or how should the player watch the tutorial to understand the game? And once we get to understanding how to use a large switch statement, I would recommend just switching over to enumerations if you understand what they are, or stick with implementing. So increasing an integer by 1. I'm having like a brain fart. Yeah, like this plus plus. I can't even think of the shorthand. It'll come to me later. Just keep increasing the ints by one. You just kind of have to keep track. You could also use like put a little comment like, this is where the player learns to read signs. Read signs in the game world. Alright. Then the next one is like, this is where the player learns to jump. Alright, so at least if you are just using integers in a big switch statement, at least you can use comments to say what's going on instead of if you're not familiar with enumerations. Now, the beauty of mixing this kind of large switch statement, which is basically just a state machine, just managing a series of states, is that you can now control animators, which are also just state machines. So you have multiple animations, many different ways to transition between them, many different speeds to play the animations. And now you can convey even more information by just turning on and off or sending commands to the animator, which is managing a large series of animations in its own kind of type of state machine, which is giving a little bit more complexity than just turning stuff on and off in a switch statement. Now you're telling a series of animators controlling all these 3D objects in your scene what state is the whole game world in, and then how the animators kind of switch on and off the different states. So we'll get into that in Sprint 3. Just think about if, for Sprint 2, if your level you're building out is either the tutorial or level 1, just try to push more. Don't make it dynamic. Just add more stuff that turns on and off for people who are playing your Sprint 2 prototype to understand a lot more what you're trying to do. Especially when you're working with teams and then other people who may understand a little bit more programming, you can actually help you out because you're expressing your ideas closer to getting it to that coding state. And then Sprint 3, we'll talk a lot about the animators. But please email me if anything was confusing in this video and where you're going to get to at the end of Sprint 2 in this next week that's coming up. All right. So thank you. And don't forget to contact DJ if you are interested in helping or pushing the idea of this production lab that we're defining. Thanks.